Good morning! In behalf of Monja and our senior high school college, I want to welcome you to the Race and Ethnicity Discrimination Symposium. As we all know, race and ethnicity are complex terms and often used interchangeably. These terms are initially separated to design race as a biological quality and ethnicity as a cultural phenomenon. This distinction mirrors efforts to distinguish sex and gender, unlike sex and gender. Okay? However, there is a little agreement on core distinctions between race and ethnicity. So, the difference between race and ethnicity will be discussed by the next speakers and also the culture racism. And they will be given some little more examples about each. So, let's talk about the confusing word of race and ethnicity. When it comes to race and ethnicity, you definitely can draw a line in the sand between these two terms. The line between your race and your ethnicity can definitely become blurred. This is largely due to the fact that race and ethnicity are social constructs rather than based on any science. Okay, according to White House research, as I remember a White House research, there is no genetic basis in race. It was found that all humans are closely related with same gene collections. The version of those same genes are what created specific features like darkened skin color or blue eyes. The genes that you get from your parents determine your physical attributes. How you raised contributes to the traditions and cultures, however, each human is genetically the same as the person standing next to them. So let's move on. As we all know, when we hear the word race and ethnicity, we always remember the African Americans, or we all know as the Black Americans. Do you know why? Come on, let's go and check this out.
Beautiful is like having stuff on, you know what I'm saying? Like that's beautiful. So if I don't have nothing on, I have nothing on me to say, oh, that's beautiful. Myself, but then what? Maybe if I get her legs and her stomach, then, you know, maybe he'll love me a little more. Suck your stomach in. She used to be like, oh, when you're walking around, when you get up, suck your stomach in because it's always hanging out. And I remember, like, middle school, like, doing that when I was walking around, just sucking my stomach in.
I think that self-image disorder is probably the best way to describe it in 3 words. Women of color have never been in a position to define our own sexuality. So when people are talking about we have to redefine, we never did it in the first place. It's been, you know, slave owner, master, then men, and now media.
We'll tell you what you can be. We'll fill you up on exactly what role to act. And if you get confused, you know, we'll sell you some things that might unravel you. We'll sell you though, but we ain't giving it away for free.
Young girls have to decide who they want to be. If you want to be a woman of respect, if you want to be a woman that can support herself financially and not have to depend on any cat, any man, if you want to be a woman who's considered beautiful, but it's got to be you. It's got to be you.
Okay, so now let's move on. Why African Americans are we always remember when we hear the word race and ethnicity? Based on my research, African Americans, or also referred as Black Americans or Afro-Americans, are an ethnic group of Americans with total or partial ancestry from any of Black racial groups of Africa. The term African American generally denotes descendants of enslaved states, while some recent Black immigrants or their children also come to identify as African American or identify differently. So I found the research about African Americans' inequality, discrimination, and why African Americans are the first one we always remember when we hear the word race and ethnicity. So these findings are based on national survey by Pew Research Center conducted February 29 to May 8, 2016 among 3,769 adults including 1,799 whites, 1,004 blacks, and 654 Hispanics. The survey and the analysis of the survey findings is centered primarily around the divide between blacks and whites and on the treatment of black people in the United States. So today, in recent years, the centuries-old divide has generated renewed attention following the deaths and unarmed Black Americans during encounters with the police, as well as a racial-motivated shooting that killed 9 Black parishioners at a church in Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. So, the survey finds that Black and white adults have widely different perceptions about what life is like for Blacks in the United States. For example, by large margins, Black are more likely than whites to say Black people are treated less fairly in the workplace, a difference of 42 percentage points when applying for a loan or a mortgage like that, in dealing with the police, in the store or restaurants like that, and when voting in the elections. By a margin of at least 20 percentage points, Blacks are also more likely than whites to say racial discrimination, and including the lower quality schools and the lack of jobs. These are the major reasons that Blacks may have a harder time getting ahead than whites.
So, race is a group of humans based on shared physical or social qualities into categories as distinct by society. The term was first used to refer to speaker of a common language and then to denote national affiliations, began to refer to physical traits. Again, race is the idea that human species is divided into distinct groups on the basis of inherited physical and behavioral differences. Genetic study refuted the existence of biogenetically distinct races, and scholars now argue race are cultural interventions reflecting specific attitudes and beliefs that were imposed on different populations in the wake of Western European. So now we're moving to race discrimination. Race discrimination is any discrimination against any individual on the basis of their skin color or ethnic origin. Individual can discriminate refusing to do business with, socialize with, or share with people of certain group. Government can discriminate in explicitly in law. For example, through policies of racial segregation, disparate enforcement of law, or disproportionate allocation of resources. Some jurisdictions have anti-discrimination law which prohibit the government or individuals from discriminating based on race and something other factors. Some institutions and laws use affirmation action to attempt to or compensate for the effect of racial discrimination. In some cases, this is simply enhance recruitment of members of underrepresented groups. So yeah, race discrimination is when you are treated differently because of your race in one of the situations covered by the Equality Act. Treatment could be one-off action or as a result of a rule or policy. It doesn't have to be intentional to be unlawful. The Equality Act 2010 says you must not be discriminated against because of your race. Race also covers ethnic and racial groups. This means a group of people who all share the same protected characteristic of ethnicity or race. You may be discriminated against because of one or more aspect of your race. For example, people born in Britain to Jamaican parents could be discriminated because of their British citizens or because of their Jamaican national origin. Indirect discrimination. This happens when someone treats you worse than another person in a similar situation because of your race. Like, for example, if a letting agency would not let a flat to you because of your race, direct race discrimination. And in indirect discrimination, and when an organization has a particular policy or way working that puts people of your racial group at disadvantage. For example, a hairdresser refused to employ stylists that cover hair. This would put any Muslim woman or Sikh men who cover their hair at disadvantage when applying for a position as a stylist. Sometimes indirect race discrimination can be permitted if the organization or the employee is able to show there is a good reason for discrimination.
What is discrimination? So I have gathered some information from Google on what is discrimination, and some of the things that I will be sharing to you is from my own personal definition of it. Okay, so this is from Google. What is discrimination? Discrimination is the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people and groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. But explaining why it happens is more complicated. You see, our brain naturally put categories and things. That's why we can't really control the discrimination issues here, especially in the Philippines. Personally, I don't think discrimination is a good practice, and you're not supposed to discriminate anyone, no matter how far you've come in life and no matter what they look like. You should always treat everyone with the same respect. How race affects our society. So practically it affects in a way that more opportunities are given at the not so motivated people because they are privileged about their physical appearance. Though we're not supposed to focus at this certain issue, but it's sad because it's the main reason why people lose their confidence, because it's undeniable that people really base on what they look rather than what they feel and what they observe on people's personality. It has a big effect because people live in society and we can't have a healthy one if people continue to think like this.
So, what is ethnicity? Ethnicity is an ethnic group
or ethnicity is a grouping of humans based on people who identify with each other on the basis of shared attributes that distinguish them from other groups, such as a common set of tradition, ancestry, language, history, society, culture, nation, religion, or social treatment with their residing area. Types of ethnicity. So we have 5 types of ethnicity. First is Asian. Asian is a person having origins in any of the original peoples of the Far East, Southeast Asia, or the Indian subcontinent, including, for example, Cambodia, China, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Pakistan, the Philippine Islands, Thailand, and Vietnam. Second is Black or African American. A person having origins in any of the black racial groups of Africa. Terms such as Haitian or Negro can be used in addition to Black or African American. Third is White. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. Fourth is American Indian or Alaska Native. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of North and South America, including Central America, and who maintains tribal affiliation or community attachment. Last but not the least is Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Hawaii, Guam, Samoa, or other Pacific islands.
Good day, everyone. I'm here today to talk about how ethnicity affects society. After the what is ethnicity and type is ethnicity. How ethnicity affects society, as well as religion and faith, continue to be powerful force and to recognize social division and inequalities in contemporary societies despite the ever-growing diversity of our global cities. Like it or not, race and ethnicity are not just academic concepts, they are alive and well. Says Prof. Sinya Chi-Yung, Specialty Chief Editor of Ethnicity. The example of ethnicity is discrimination. The Equality and Anti-Discrimination Movement mandated to promote equality and combat discrimination on the basis of, among other things, like gender, ethnicity, religion, beliefs, disability, sexual orientation, and age. The Ombudsman gives advice and is a driving force for equality and diversity. Next example is the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Tribunal. The Equality and Anti-Discrimination Tribunal enforces the statutory prohibition against discrimination. Contact the Ombudsman and the Tribunal. In 2019, discussing the new Wagon Parliament decided to authorize the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Tribunal to enforce the prohibition against sexual harassment in the Equality and Anti-Discrimination Act, and award compensation in cases concerning work-related sexual harassment and certain other instances.
Cultural discrimination is when a person is treated less favorably because of their cultural background. Many countries provide laws to protect its citizens. What is a culture? The characteristic features of everyday existence, such as diversion or a way of life shared by people in a place or time. We often see a person's cultural background through their language and race, to their clothing, food, music, and arts. Cultural group can also share the same age, gender, sexual preference, physical issues, or social status, among other things. A person's well-being can be affected by these issues impacted by cross-cultural, often through discrimination and lack of acceptance. Some of us are insulted, humiliated, or threatened because of their culture or some aspects of their identity. By increasing awareness and educating people to let them be more open on certain things that they're not aware of can help to solve these kinds of issues. Here in the Philippines, we encounter different types of cultural discrimination. The indigenous people that includes the Igorot, Mangyan, Ivatan, Aitas, and the Maranaos and many more are the most affected by this issue because of their cultural background.
Muslims have undergone racialization, coming to be seen as distinct social groups separate from the majority on the basis of their cultural traits. Influenced by critical pedagogy, those calling for the eradication of cultural racism in Western countries have largely argued that this should be done by promoting multicultural education and anti-racism through schools and universities. The utility of the concept has been debated. Some scholars have argued that prejudices and hostility based on culture are sufficiently different from biological racism that it is not appropriate to use the term racism for both. According to this view, incorporating cultural prejudices into the concept of racism expands the latter too much and weakens its utility. Among scholars who have used the concept of cultural racism, there have been debates as to its scope. Some scholars have argued that Islamophobia should be considered a form of cultural racism. Others have disagreed, arguing that while cultural racism pertains to visible symbols of difference like clothing, cuisine, and language, Islamophobia primarily pertains to hostility on the basis of religious beliefs.
Government had contributed to the struggles against discrimination by establishing laws to improve the situation and other laws that violates the rights of the indigenous people. However, the overall problem is the people who refuse to obey and respect the differences in other culture.
Here are some examples of cultural discrimination. It is now or never discrimination has to end. Imagine a world where religion and race are no longer issues. It is the kind of world I bet we would all want to live in. I have been wondering why a non-Muslim can grow his beard without any fear of being suspected of bad intentions. But when a Muslim sports a beard, there is a high chance he would be labeled an extremist. Have been wondering why nuns can cover themselves from head to toe, but when an Islam sister does this, she is often misjudged. I have been wondering why when a person protects his land, he is called a hero, but when a Muslim does it, he is tagged as a terrorist. I was not aware of the term Islamophobia. Do you think it's too nasty? Do you think it's disrespect Muslims?
Another example is about the indigenous children in school. Indigenous children are more likely to arrive at school hungry, ill, and tired. They are often bullied, and the use of corporal punishment is still widespread. Ethnic and cultural discrimination at schools are major obstacles to equal access to education, causing poor performance and higher dropout rates. Indigenous girls, in particular, experience difficult problems related to unfriendly school environments, gender discrimination, school-based violence, and sometimes sexual abuse, all of which contribute to high dropout rates.
They should respect the race and ethnicity of the others. What I mean is, they shouldn't interfere with what they use and what they believe. The government should let and give them a free will to decide if they are going to change or not. They should give more importance and full of respect. The different group of people has a different race and ethnicity. The government gives our Indigenous Republic Act of number 8371 that give a recognition, protection, and to promote the rights of indigenous people. By this RA 8371, the discrimination and inequality eliminates because it protects what does the indigenous people have should be respected and not be claimed by others. By giving back again to the indigenous people the land that was acquired by other people without involving any amount of money, or if there is, it should be not much big amount that can easily pay by the government. By giving them the opportunity to go to school with full scholarship and allowance, so that there is no reason for not going to school. By giving them equal rights and respect like others. Because of all of this, discrimination and inequality is not much issue, because they are given a chance to prove themselves that they are not stupid at all because of being educated people.
When you treat people differently because of their race, ethnicity, and skin color, that's discrimination. When we neglect to learn and grow, that's when the problems start. We as a human being, we have a responsibility to be more knowledgeable in differences in the world. Government, school, or even normal citizens should spread awareness and exercises to educate people to let them be more open on certain things that they're not aware of.
Government cannot stop social inequality. They can lessen it. It is because no matter where we go, there is no perfect country and there is no perfect government. However, the government is doing their best to do an anti-bullying or anti-discrimination law, which talk about not discriminate people based on their skin or what country they came from. But it is the people who don't know this law, or they just don't obey it. So for me, the act of government is just good by applying the law, but it is just the people who don't obey it.
We are experiencing discrimination mostly because of our skin color, religion, and physical appearance. Our government is doing their best to prevent discrimination in our country. But the problem is not the government. The problem is the people in this country who can stop discriminating others. They are throwing negative thoughts without knowing what it feels hearing those kind of words. Being discriminated is not easy because being discriminated may lead you to depression, and depression may lead you to death.